If you're a CrossFit athlete, I have 4 mobility tests that you absolutely have to do. You see, the sport of CrossFit challenges our mobility more than almost any other recreational fitness activity when you're doing movements like the overhead squat, like muscle ups, and like dips. And because of that, most CrossFit athletes recognize that if their mobility is not good, they won't be able to get into perfect positions for great form, and they're gonna feel a few more aches and pains. The problem is that most CrossFit athletes are focusing their mobility work on the wrong areas. And let me illustrate that by talking about the overhead squat. So you've probably seen somebody overhead squat, and it kind of looks like this. We're in that bottom position, their torso is really far forward, and their shoulders are in this really extreme position. And so their hips might feel tight there, their shoulders might feel tight, and they'll spend a lot of time working on mobility in those areas and not actually ever impacting their overhead squat. And the reason for that is that they're in this position because they can't drive their knees forward if they have stiff ankles. And so if you try to work on your mobility for CrossFit, but you're not assessing where you need to work first, you're gonna spin your wheels. And so I wanna take you through the 4 best tests that I think athletes should do for their mobility, but I also wanna note that there are a lot more tests if you go to performanceplusprogramming.com/movements, and you can access our ultimate mobility checklist for free. Let's start by talking about the lats. One of the biggest muscles in our upper body, the lats are incredibly important for the CrossFit athlete. So we're gonna sit with our legs crossed and our back flat on an upright of a rig or a wall. And we're doing that so that we don't arch our back as we lift up, and we can really just look at our shoulder mobility. I'm gonna grab a PVC pipe with my arms at shoulder width. I don't wanna be wider than that. And I'm simply gonna see, can I open my arms up enough that I can touch that PVC pipe to the upright of the squat rack without my elbows bending or my back coming off the wall. That's gonna be mobility test number 1 for our lats. Up next, we're gonna test out our ankle mobility. So shoes and socks off for this one. We're gonna get down in the bottom of a lunge, and we're gonna position our big toe 1 hand width away from that box. And I simply wanna see, if you drive straight forward, can you touch your knee to the box without your ankle coming up? If so, your ankle mobility is pretty good, and you're gonna be in really good positioning from that perspective on things like your squats. From there, let's jump up to the hips. And the hips are crucial in so many different CrossFit movements. And so I'm just gonna simply sit on a box. I'm gonna sit trunk nice and tall, knees directly in front of my hip. I'm gonna get the non-testing leg out of the way, and I'm gonna spin my leg in while I keep my thigh flat on the table. That's looking at our hip external rotation. And I love to see that athletes get about 45 degrees of external rotation or more. And I'll be honest, this is the one that most CrossFit athletes pass because they love doing the pigeon stretch all the time. What I find they fail more frequently is the other direction, going into hip internal rotation. So again, trunk nice and tall. Now I'm gonna bring my foot out relative to my knee, keeping that knee in line with my hips, and I wanna see that athletes can get about a 30-degree angle there. You're obviously gonna need a partner for those two to kind of spot you from the front or set a camera up, but what I'm really looking for is 45-30. I don't really care specifically about that angle, but if you have 80 degrees of hip external rotation and 0 internal rotation, or maybe the opposite, what you'll so frequently find is you'll make really fast progress on things like your squat depth, hip pain, low back pain, if you address the one of those 2 areas that is a little bit more limited than the other. And 80% of the time, it is athletes' hip internal rotation that is limited more. The final area that we're gonna test is going to be our upper back mobility, which is crucial for anything where we're going overhead, crucial for our front rack positioning, and often a stiff thoracic spine or upper back will lead to low back pain, neck pain, or shoulder pain, so you don't want to skip this final test that we're gonna show you here. For that test, I'm gonna get up against a box. I'm gonna sit down so that my butt is on my heels, but my hip and thigh are up against this box. Then I'm gonna put both forearms together right in front of my knees, and the hand that's away from the box is coming behind my low back, and I'm simply gonna spin. So I'm gonna turn my head towards that side and rotate my trunk as far as I can. And what I want you to watch for is, imagine my collarbone. I wanna see that I can rotate about 50 degrees up through my collarbone as I do that, while my thigh and shoulder stay up against the box. So I hit 50 degrees there, pretty good. We are gonna test that on both sides, because what you'll find is if that upper back rotation is limited, upper back extension will be limited as well. So those are the 4 most important tests for CrossFit athletes, but there are a lot of other things that you can check out, and you can access our ultimate mobility checklist at performanceplusprogramming.com/movements, or click the link below this video. And what you'll do in that resource is choose the movement patterns that you struggle with, and then we'll have videos walking you through the specific tests that you need so that you can unlock things like your front rack, your overhead press, your muscle ups, your overhead squat, by designing mobility programs that target these specific areas that you need, rather than doing a general program that only hits a little bit of what you need. What you'll find is when you get specific, you make improvements so much faster, and your performance in the gym will elevate a lot better.